After a mid-season U-turn, Lucy Charles-Barclay is racing the Ironman World Championships in Nice. Can she go back-to-back and defend her title from Kona? This is day 2 of previewing the Women's Ironman World Championships. Over the next week, I'm going to be previewing the race, starting with breaking down each of my top 5 favourites to take the win. That's Lucy Charles-Barclay, Annie Howe, Kat Matthews, Laura Philipp and Chelsea Sodaro. I'll be reviewing their seasons so far, seeing where they fit into the race dynamics and making my predictions. And today we've got defending Ironman World Champion Lucy Charles-Barclay. Coming into the season, there were 2 big storylines surrounding her. Like the other favourites, she was signed to race in the T100 series, and she came out early saying she was going to prioritise the series and not defend her Ironman World title in Nice. Now this caused a bit of a stir, but there were several reasons for her decision. She didn't want to overload her body racing another Ironman or 270.3s just to validate her slot. And now this links to the second big story that was surrounding her. She was still carrying that calf injury that she picked up in Kona on her way to winning that Ironman World title. So after struggling with different injuries over past seasons, she just didn't want to overload her body racing too many races and decided to focus on that T100 series. There were also some other reasons around the course maybe not favouring her, and she thought she'd have to spend a significant amount of time there to be able to fully prepare for the race. With that calf injury, she was originally slated to miss the T100 season opener in Miami, but the recovery went better than expected and she made the trip out to Miami, where she took second behind India Lee. A great result considering that she'd only had 4 to 6 weeks of running. But with Ashley Gentle and Taylor Knibb both not racing, that could have been her best chance to get her first ever T100 win. She continued in the T100 series, heading to Singapore, where she picked up second behind Ashley Gentle. She rode really well on one of the toughest bike courses on the circuit, putting over 4 minutes into Gentle. But the Aussie came charging back on the run and was just too strong, and Charles-Barclay had to settle for second. However, after coming into the season with that calf injury, to be able to come away from the first 2 races with 2 second places, and at this point she was leading the series, I think it had all gone much better than she expected. And it was after Singapore where her season started to change. Now maybe she hadn't expected to perform so well in the early races and be leading the series at this point, and maybe that gave her a bit of extra freedom, because she came out and said she was changing her mind and she was going to race the Ironman World Championships in Nice in September. Now to be able to validate her slot, she headed to Ironman Nice in June and came away with an impressive performance, setting a course record and running a 2:49 even though the course is a little bit short. Even though she set that course record, she was still outbiked by some lesser known names. This course is very different to Kona. Aero is still important, but it's got those long climbs and long descents and definitely favours other athletes compared to Lucy Charles-Barclay. She's no stranger to a tough course. Her first pro Ironman win was at Ironman Lanzarote. However, the way she won that title last year was by outriding everyone, and I'm not sure if we'll see the same again in Nice. After missing San Francisco T100 to go and race that race in Nice, the next stop was London T100. Now this seemed like a race that was incredibly important to her. She had a custom bike, custom sunglasses, custom helmet, and she lives on the outskirts of London, and I regularly see her swimming in the Olympic pool, so this is a race in her backyard. I was expecting her to come in and send a message, but she ended up DNFing on the run. It's the only DNF of her pro career, and she came out after the race and said that she'd had a really bad lead-in and considered not even starting. After feeling pain in that same leg she had the injury, and she decided to pull the pin, and you have to wonder if that's a result of squeezing in that Ironman to validate, but she had to do it to be able to race in Nice in September. There were only 8 weeks in between London T100 and the World Championships in Nice, and with a week of recovery and a week's taper, that gives you roughly 6 weeks to build some fitness and for her to find some form and confidence. The interesting thing is, over the last few years, she's never had a great lead into her World Championships. In 2022, she missed the first half of the season, only making her season debut in August, and she went on to finish second in Kona. Last year, halfway through the season, she picked up a stress fracture, returned to racing in Singapore at the Asian Open, didn't look that great, but was able to turn it round and win her Ironman World title. So she's no stranger to adversity. She's had these mid-season challenges before, and I wouldn't be surprised if she turns it around again in time for Nice. Coming to the race dynamics, where's Lucy Charles-Barclay gonna be fitting into this race? Now, she finds herself in a unique situation in every race, swimming off the front and having to go solo, and this is how she's won both of her 70.3 and Ironman World Championships, a complete solo effort, and it's a tough way to race. Looking at how I think the swim packs will play out, I've got Lucy Charles-Barclay in that front pack all alone, and it feels like every World Champs the question is asked, can anyone hang with her? Lauren Brandon and Rachel Zielinskis are probably the next best swimmers in the field, and I've got them swimming in that first chase pack. They were incredibly strong at Ironman Lake Placid, but I just don't think they can swim with Lucy Charles-Barclay if Charles-Barclay doesn't want them to. And I've got Lucy leading out the swim by herself, and looking back to some of the other favourites I've got, most of them are in this second chase pack, and I think she'll have at least 4 minutes, maybe even 5 over that group. And going back to Laura Phillips, she'll probably have 7 to 8 minutes over her. Onto the bike, and I think it's going to be around a 5:15 to a 5.5 hour bike, and that gives the chasers an extra 45 minutes to an hour to reel her in. And I think this course suits some of the other athletes better than it does Charles-Barclay. Kat Matthews and Laura Phillip have both ridden really well on hilly courses this year, so I could see them putting time into Lucy Charles-Barclay on the bike. But like I said, Charles-Barclay's probably going to have 4 to 5 minutes over Kat Matthews and 7 to 8 minutes over Laura Phillip. I don't know if I can see her getting outridden by that much time. So we may see her staying away, and it could come down to where she wants to exert more of her effort. We could see her work harder on the bike to build up a bigger buffer for the run, or if she's feeling more confident in her run and she's been able to put in some good mileage, she may not worry about getting caught on the bike and back her run. She might be one of the athletes that would prefer to descend following another athlete, and that could actually play into her hands. Onto the run, and looking at the run tiers that I've put together, I've got her in this second tier of athletes, probably running in the 250s. Now, she did race the normal Ironman in Nice back in June. She ran really well, putting down a 2:49. The course is a bit short on the normal Ironman, and they make it the full distance for the World Championships. So I think that would translate to a sort of a low 250s, maybe mid 250s, and I probably expected to repeat the same, assuming that she's managed to put in some good run training. Charles-Barclay has to be considered for the win. She's never not podiumed one of her Ironman World Championships. However, with that tough lead into London, and she's only had 6 weeks to turn it around, and we don't know if she's still got some of that lingering Achilles and calf pain. The way she wins this race is going out and dominating, solo all day, and I don't know if she's going to have that in her. 6 weeks, is it enough for her to build that fitness and find that form? With that being said, she's always going to put herself in a position to challenge for the win. She's going to lead out that swim, possibly stay away on the bike or maybe get caught, but I don't think she'll have enough on the run to take the win. And I've got her getting caught by Annie Haug and Kat Matthews, but I've got her in third, keeping that podium streak alive. Thanks for watching, and see you tomorrow as we break down my next favourite who'll be fighting for the win. See you there.